Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks again for joining us here for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Yesterday, the satellite showed a big storm that had cut through the interior, bringing the high winds, the freezing rain, snow, and then temperatures into the 40s. Pulling off to the east, the colder air coming in, band of snow right through here. Lighter snow than what was associated with the main front. And all that moisture down here over the southeast coast, bringing a fair amount of rain into that area. And the whole pattern slowly shifting southward. A lot of moisture out here on the north side of a very warm upper level high pressure area that brought that record high 65 degrees to Unalaska Dutch Harbor yesterday. And today, southwest winds pushed the King Cove temperature up False Pass reached 62 degrees today. But all this moisture, some of it still sliding eastward. You can see today a new batch coming into the southwest. There's actually a warm front right through here. So the snow that occurred over Bristol Bay today changed over to rain as that warm front lifted north of the area there. And that extends back out to a lot more moisture that's hung up out over the western Aleutian areas. And also westerly moving clouds here over the interior, bringing some light snow in across the Koyukuk Valley, areas of the Brooks Range here, and some flurries back to the west. Kind of an area of light snow going on this afternoon, probably due to this cloud band here, sliding eastward into Kotzebue Sound, Deering, Kotzebue, Kivalina, all reporting some light snow this afternoon. Pretty gusty winds up along the Arctic coast from the west and southwest, as high as 40 miles per hour. Over at Kaktovik, and snow and blowing snow at times became mostly just drifting snow. Visibility's up around 8 to 10 miles. And then that northwest flow keeping some snow in on the northwest coast. But you can see this system moving out of the area, clearing out with drier north and northeast winds, in some cases gusting as high as 35 miles an hour over the channeled areas there. And this just mostly clouds, maybe a few flurries in here, but most of the moisture was back along the Alaska Range and to the west or on up to the north. And looking at that again, you can see this area sliding east and southeast. Again, just clouds coming over south central Alaska. Everything backed up along the Alaska Range and to the north. And that pattern is going to be holding just about through the weekend. And on the chart today, high pressure ushering the colder temperatures in that many areas fell well below zero this morning or overnight and into this morning here. But moisture in the upper flow streaming in from the west there, bringing the areas of light snow, but not really favorable for anything too heavy. Then we have this low pressure area here. Warm front in advance of that again with the snow changing over to rain and then ending this afternoon. Temperatures up around 40 over Bristol Bay. But this already tracking southeastward in the Arctic front coming in behind, so you'll be dropping colder here. Windy, again, as I mentioned here, and dry over the southeast coast. And there's that next system bringing the warm front and rain. And northeast winds up to about 45 miles an hour at Shemya there, but under high pressure, light variable winds, very nice conditions again over the Aleutians with mild temperatures to warm conditions there over the Alaska Peninsula, although a little bit windy. And for tonight, we'll look at most of this moisture where this trough will be along or off the coast. It'll be in the form of rain showers on the south coast, again offshore, to snow up here in the colder air, maybe around Yakutat, but staying dry for the most part, some variable clouds, but continued gusty northeast winds there as this colder air coming around the Arctic high over the Northwest Territories again keeps most of this moisture off the coast and dry conditions here over south central Alaska. Some areas beginning to pick up those north winds here in the channeled areas such as Resurrection Bay. They should see possibly some higher gusts developing later tonight. Maybe westerly passes canal could kick up to 25 knots. Otherwise, a pretty nice evening, dry evening, and again, a little bit colder. Copper River Basin back into south central Alaska. All the snow hung up along and north of the Alaska Range, wrapping right back down to the southwest. So some flurries on down into the Kilbrook Mountains. Again, that Arctic front and the colder air back across Bristol Bay here. So this evening, when that comes through, you may see some snow again, but nothing too heavy. The overwater trajectory not that great, and the dynamics certainly not there for anything more than half an inch. And still no change up there. Same pattern for the Arctic coast, and higher pressure here centered over the Russian Far East with a pretty good ridge into the Bering Sea. And you can see that flow now right out of the Arctic there, all the way down into the Gulf of Alaska. This system out here has kind of lost its way and been abandoned by the main flow, just sitting stationary there. And the front will remain roughly in this position through the weekend, although there'll be some eastward advance on Sunday and the low will begin to slip off to the southeast. For Saturday, tomorrow, you can see this system will track to just west of the Queen Charlotte Islands, or develop down in there with the trough still back up to the northwest. And again, just about all the precipitation will remain off the coast there or right along the coastal areas, and still that light snow, low cloud condition along and north of the Alaska Range, coming all the way back around Merrill Pass, for example, and still some flurries out here to the west. A little more continuous up along the trough through the north central interior. And the north slope in the Arctic coast looking still pretty windy and pretty snowy with blowing and drifting conditions in areas there with reduced visibilities. And again, some areas could see gusts as high as 30 to 40 miles an hour, but other areas will see quite a bit less wind. And then the offshore flow here with this ridging over the northern Bering Sea, clearing it out along the coast. Bristol Bay looking pretty good. Kodiak, mostly sunny tomorrow, gusty north and northwest winds. And high pressure here, but cooler temperatures now, with the jet stream beginning to retreat to the south and more of this cooler air beginning to spread out to the west there. Rain may make it as far east as Adak during the day tomorrow, but again, that low center hung up out there to the west, and we'll see on Sunday that starts actually to slide away, but the front stalled out along the Aleutians, so look for some rain possibly as far east as Nikolsky, just a thread into Unalaska. But up to the north, and then quite a bit of moisture here. You could see some moderate amounts of rain over toward Adak and Atka on out to Shimia. Strong high pressure now over the northern Bering Sea, so that's going to keep the flow from the north here, and temperatures are gradually cooling everywhere through the weekend. And this trough up here along the Arctic coast on Sunday, bringing another round of snow, and that's actually going to drop southward, and it'll be after that passes by first of next week. That's when the temperatures will really start to get cold up here over the northeast and eastern interior areas. No change over the southeast coast here, mostly snow showers, not a big solid area, more of a broken area of precipitation going on out along the coast. But again, that east to west flow keeping it along or off the coast there, and then swinging back into this frontal boundary that with the low there passing the Queen Charlotte Islands. Temperatures this afternoon were kind of contrasted from north to south here over the Panhandle. 33 at Juneau, 30 at Elfin Cove, 41 at Sitka. They picked up about 86/100ths of an inch of rain in the last 24 hours, but all of that was left over from last night, as were the amounts here over the southern Panhandle. All that rain was from last evening and overnight, and a pretty nice day today, up to 41, although the north winds gusting up to 30 miles an hour, Heidelberg, Klawock, and over at Ketchikan. 34 degrees this afternoon at Yakutat, while Cordova was about the same. Valdez right at 32. These are all 4 o'clock temperatures. 2 degrees above zero at Gulkana, but 40 at Nome, 45 Kodiak, 26 in Anchorage, Talkeetna 19, same thing at Minchumina, 12 degrees, Northway 14, and some light snow at Delta Junction, 10 at Fairbanks. Below zero from Eagle to Fort Yukon to the cold spot at Arctic Village with -8. In the lower to mid-teens along the Arctic coast, milder here to the west. 20 degrees with snow at Point Lay, 23 at Point Hope, 25 Kotzebue, but 14 at Noatak, 27 at Nome and Shishmaref, 12 degrees Galena, while McGrath was at 26. Iliamna, though, up to 34. And again, that warm front right through here with King Salmon up around 40, 45 there at Port Haydn. And then Falls Pass with that 62 degrees, upper 30s over the Pribilofs. North winds there gusting up to about 30 miles an hour. So those temperatures will continue to fall this evening. Very nice mid-40s light winds and some sunshine out over the Aleutians. Lows tonight below zero here, where some areas are currently below zero already over the eastern interior, but coldest in the east, mildest in the southwest to possibly lower 40s. Well, you're already colder than that there for the Pribilofs, so some of this forecast busted already. And then highs tomorrow maybe into the lower 40s for the Pribilofs. Coldest up here in the northeast interior with an ever-growing area remaining below zero throughout the entire day, but still on the mild side back to the west. And for flying weather, look for IFR along and north at times, especially early in the day here of the central and eastern Alaska Range. Moisture conditions kind of slipping back down to the south there on the west side. IFR definitely on the entire stretch of the western Arctic coast, a little more scattered out on the east side, but marginal VFR all the way down to the Brooks Range, possibly maybe into the Koyukuk Valley. This will remain along and off the coast of the Panhandle with VFR elsewhere. So marginal VFR, St. Lawrence Island. Pretty good area of VFR skies here over the Bering Sea down into Bristol Bay, and then IFR out over the Aleutians. For Anatuve, expect IFR tomorrow, as well as for Adigan, IFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, mostly, or the lowest conditions will be on the west side, VFR here on those eastern entrances. Same thing for Rainy, lowest on the west side, better on the east side. And for Windy, same pattern there, south side VFR, north side possibly IFR. Isabel, IFR, gradual improvement to marginal conditions tomorrow, and Mentasta, IFR in the north entrance. Tanita, VFR, Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White, both VFR. For the freezing levels here at the surface, tomorrow morning and really throughout much of the day tomorrow, right around Nunivak Island, down, trying to come into Kodiak Island there, and then up along and down along the coast with the mild conditions now getting suppressed south and southeastward, and that pattern will continue right into the first of next week. And for icing, really not a whole lot, maybe just the possibility of some in these shaded areas here over the extreme eastern Gulf of Alaska, maybe some up there over the eastern Tanana Valley areas and up to the north, but nothing significant at all, and nothing that would result in more than just trace amounts. Better chances though below 12,000 feet in a much deeper moisture layer out here over the western Bering and Aleutians. Upper level wind flow chart showing the jet stream now tomorrow, forecast tomorrow to be oriented a little more northwest, southeast here, with the entire pattern starting to shift to the south with a deep upper level low over the Canadian archipelago. This one we're watching, that's going to drop on down on Sunday and then continue southward into the first of next week with high pressure holding out here to the west. And for 9,000 foot winds, pretty windy here at this level, just about from the Kenai Peninsula, with the strongest winds occurring up along the Arctic coast there. Very light conditions here with high pressure out to the west and southwest. And southeast winds 25 to 40 knots out over the Bering Sea. 3,000 foot level winds looking pretty brisk again up along the Arctic coast. Northwest to west 35 to 40 knots, and pretty breezy over the north central interior as well, with 20 to 25 knot winds, but lighter out toward the Bering Sea. Definitely light and variable under the ridge there across the Kuskokwim Bay and Bristol Bay areas, and then return flow southeast 20, increasing to 35 knots here over the southwest Bering Sea in association with a low near Shimia. Otherwise, high pressure and lighter winds to the north. And turbulence-wise, again, for Kodiak Island, light to moderate chop here, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, Turnagain areas, even the Madanuska Valley possibly along the North Gulf Coast areas in across Lincoln Glacier Bay, Skagway. That all due to mechanical turbulence here, the building gradient and those northerly winds. And also up along the Arctic coast, continued moderate chop possible, especially for light air or small aircraft, and that mainly on the central and east side, but pretty smooth here through the western interior and a fair ways into the central part of the state, and then some rougher conditions, but nothing too bad out over the western Aleutians. And after the break, after hangar flying, I'll return with the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Cornfield, and on behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to another edition of Hangar Flying. My guest again this evening is Mike Lucas. Welcome back to Hangar Flying, Mike.
Thanks, Ed.
Last time on the show we discussed flight instructing in Bethel and the flight school. Can you, I've got some pictures here. Let's just start out with that. Tell us what, this is the first one coming up on the screen. Just tell us a little bit about what this picture is about.
This is a picture of one of our students who is soon to be a commercial pilot. He'll take his check ride this month. That's Johnny Andrew Jr. from Quingilingoc. And he's talking to a class of students in Napakiak. And he's recruiting them. And it's really, it's the ultimate manifestation of really a school is having the students going out and recruiting. And over to the side there, there's the educational specialist, Julie McWilliams. She's spearheading the Aviation Ready Academy and through Lower Kuskokwim School District, and we're doing this in conjunction.
And you on the last show you said that the school targets people in the Delta around the Bethel area as students for aviation to become pilots, air taxis, and that they actually can get a job with one of the air carriers out of school. Yeah,
right out of school, AERA will hire our commercial pilots. We're working on a program with UDAIR where they would make some of our pilots CFIs in order to build time. That's a sort of a different program.
Let me put up another picture and you can talk a little bit about
Okay, that's Mikey White from Kipnuk, and in the center, and Mike Buckland on the left. He's the designated examiner. And our new chief flight instructor, Roberto Guerrero, he's very patient and hardworking. And Mikey White's a commercial pilot now, and he's one of our standouts because he took all 3 ground instructor tests, written tests, and the fundamentals of instructing and CFI written tests, and took those and passed those while he was waiting to go to AERA ground school. I was pretty proud of him.
What's in the future for the school? Are they going to branch out and do anything else besides the flight instructing?
Right now we're flight instruction, and next door we have our maintenance facility, which they're finishing up paperwork to get that going. So you could, within a year, you could be either a pilot or a mechanic. Okay. Have a full approved maintenance school.
And so the course for becoming an airframe and power plant mechanic is 1 year in that
that's
school?
1,900 hours.
Okay.
Whatever that works out to. It's probably under 2 years. But it's going to be there, and it's going to work. It's another big option.
Okay. There's another picture. Maybe you can describe that. Tell us about it.
That's one of my students, Daniel Abalama from Quinnipiac, and Mike Buckland and me. And Danny was pretty young when he came. He's on the line now, out flying second command. But you know, he came. He didn't have a driver's license, and he's out a certified pilot, which I think is kind of cool.
It is. It is pretty cool. Here's one more picture.
This is a picture of the whole crew, and in the back row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those guys in the back row are flying for hire now, and 2 in the front row. So that picture's a couple years old.
What a great opportunity for kids in rural Alaska to be able to learn how to fly in their home area. So, Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, you're in the Civil Air Patrol. We don't have a lot of time left, but tell us a little bit about your involvement in the CAP in Bethel.
The CAP in Bethel is turned into a good youth opportunity also. Probably have about 20 cadets in the CAP, and they're getting involved in the school. They're involved in the ACE Academy, Aviation Academy, put on with in conjunction with FAA, and it gets them into the somewhat regimented, organized paperwork part of flying, and it's a little different than just flying airplanes. There's paper that goes along, and organization and leadership skills.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for sharing your stories and the information about the flight school. You have to tell me the name one more time of the flight school.
UCUMVAT,
Okay.
where people earn their wings.
Well, good. And folks, please mark your calendars for the annual Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation's Fall Safety Seminar, November 23rd from 8 to 4 at the UAA Aviation Complex located at Merrill Field. This year's focus will be on accident prevention. Thank you for watching, and fly safe.
Welcome back. Well, winds will be mostly east or east-northeast here along much of the outer coastline, some cases up to 25 knots. A little more variable to at least starting out westerly here on the south coast, up to 20 knots. Northerlies 25 knots here with higher gusts, particularly Lynn Canal on down into Stevens Passage in those areas. But a little more variable again early, but by Sunday, everything will be north or northeast or some northerly component to it, although it'll be pretty light down there on the south coast. But small craft advisories up here along the north side, as well as the inside waters, especially the strongest ones will be over the northern areas, but higher gusts all through this area. And for the Kodiak Island zone, northwest 20 to 25, so small craft advisories again, even possibly minimum gales here through the Barren Islands up into southern Cook Inlet, but generally 30 knots throughout the day tomorrow. 15 to 20 for Cook Inlet, and northwest 25 knots here for the North Gulf Coast. And Prince William Sound, north 20 with higher gusts coming out of the channeled bays there. And also Resurrection Bay probably could see sustained 30 knots from the north. And for Sunday, about the same here, lighter though out along the North Gulf Coast, 20 knots or so, but still looking at least small craft advisories here for the Barrens back up into Kamishak Bay. But winds diminishing, staying northwest, but coming down to 15 to 20 knots during the afternoon Sunday here along the east side, and roughly at about 20 knots for Chillicothe Strait, and still higher gusts with the cold air coming through the bays here on the west side. For Bristol Bay, small craft advisories tomorrow for those northerly winds, north 20 across the Alaska Peninsula, and northwest up to 30 with possible gale force gusts here from Sitkinak to Chignik. And then for Sunday, northeast winds, same speed here for the Alaska Peninsula, and actually northeasterlies extending all the way back up into Bristol Bay with the northeast side here more in the 10 to 15 knot range. And out in the Aleutians, northeasterlies 20 to 25 knots across the Fox Islands, and then picking up into the small craft advisory range just west of there on down toward Adak and Atka, and 30 knot winds for the western area. So looking for an increase in the winds here as well as a drop in the temperatures over what you've seen for the last couple of days. And out for Sunday, northeast 30 knots there on the western zone, and then easterlies 25 to 30 knots, diminishing a little bit down to the 20 to 25 knot range with 7-foot seas there for the Dutch Harbor and the Kulski areas. And up along the southwest coast, small craft advisories here in Nunivak Island northward, really dropping off just 15 knots from the northwest there for St. Lawrence Island, 20 to 25 knots here for the northern Bering Sea, northerlies at about 20 knots for the Pribilofs, as well as areas in toward Kuskokwim Bay and out to the west. Then those winds will turn northeast at about the same speed here on Sunday and extend all the way out to the Pribilofs, but under higher pressure and less gradient, very light winds developing here over the St. Matthew Island areas as well as St. Lawrence Island. down to 10 knots, 15 or 10 to 15 knots there north of Nunivak Island. Up along the Arctic coast, northwest winds 25 to 30 knots with the highest speeds, and actually a little more westerly than what is being shown here on the east side there, with possible higher gusts like we saw today, but lighter winds back to the west now, 15 knots here for the western areas all the way down to the Bering Strait. And for Sunday, northwest winds 20 to 25 knots, colder temperatures spreading in, so heavy freezing spray here all through these open water areas, including the Chukchi Sea, and westerlies 20 to 25 knots, down from what they've been today and tomorrow. Lighter winds, but still looking at brisk wind advisories there for the extreme east side. For tonight, again, up to the north there, gusty winds, some areas of snow blowing, drifting around, all the way right up into the Brooks Range there. And then south of there, downslope flow should push the snow out of the Koyukuk Valley, so you won't be adding too much more to your 19 inches on the ground as reported at Bettles this afternoon. And then this moisture getting hung up along the Alaska Range, some light snow possible into the central Tanana Valley, maybe back across the 40-mile areas, but mostly down toward the mountains. And some of that maybe across Yakutat, but this area is staying off the coast there, and increasing winds south central Alaska with dry conditions. And this low pressure area out here to the west only affecting the Aleutians through the weekend. Very little movement from tonight through tomorrow afternoon out there with that system due to the building high pressure here centered over the Russian Far East, ridging down over the eastern and southeast Bering Sea. No change up there along the Arctic coast, a couple of troughs keeping it snowy and occasionally windy. But again, those winds will be coming down up there all along the coast and be less, but still gustiest or highest on the east side there with that low tracking eastward.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.